Hello, welcome to another episode of Memory and Engagement Opportunities for Wellness. My name is Michelle Hobb, and I'm a speech language pathologist and the leader for Meadowlark Special Programs. I hope you enjoy our session today. What you will need for today's session is paper or a journal, pen or a pencil, and some playing cards. You don't necessarily need them for our session live, but to be able to maximize what you learn in our session today, you will want to have some playing cards for your later activities. The purpose of today's activity is to work on some breath work. This is going to allow us to work on our ability to focus and attend. We're also going to do some learning and remembering and try something new. So let's get started with our breath work. We have talked in past sessions often about the benefits of breathing and how it can not only help with centering your body, but also your mind. We want to make sure that we have a clear headspace and we're able to focus and attend to tasks. So let's go ahead and get started with that. I'm going to take both of my hands, placing them just below the rib cage. And again, one thing that we always want to remind ourselves of is that we're sitting up nice and tall in our chair. I like to really focus on keeping my legs about hip width apart and just letting my heels and feet rest into the floor. And then focusing on pushing my tailbone into the chair. This is going to help bring my upper body posture into a nice strong position as well. That then allows our diaphragm and our lungs to really be fully engaged. That way we're not slouching and causing any restrictions on our diaphragm. So again, as I said, I want you to just place your hands just below your rib cage. And we're going to take a deep breath in. And as we breathe in, we're going to open up those arms nice and wide. It's as if we're expanding our diaphragm out this big. Okay, so it's just a nice visual way to think about that. And then as we exhale through our mouth, we're going to bring our hands back down to center. And that again is giving us a little bit of a cue to really squeeze and push all of that air out of our lungs to allow maximum inhale on our next one. So let's do that together. We're going to take about 5 breaths like this. Here we go. Taking a deep breath in. Very nice. So hopefully you were able to really feel that nice expansion of your diaphragm and maybe even finding a spot ahead of you to help you focus on that spot. Maybe that spot where you're blowing your air out through your mouth to help give that additional focus. So during our activities today, if you start to feel like you're not breathing or you're not able to focus as much as you would like to be focusing, I'd like to encourage you to jump back to this. Same thing throughout your day. If there's a time in your day where you're feeling overwhelmed and you really just need to stop and take inventory of the day, I encourage you just to find a nice quiet spot and go back to this breathing pattern that we did. Maybe just 3, 5, 8, whatever it is, however many inhales and exhales it takes to help you feel like you've regained that center focus. So again, the reason that we want to work on the breathing and the focus is because without that ability to pay attention and to engage in something, we're unable to move to the next level of memory, which is immediate recall. Okay, so keeping that in mind, when you need to remember something, You have to be able to focus and attend. It's the first and most important spot. A couple of weeks ago, we did something new and different where we watched a TED Talk, and I added in some commentary and some more information and tidbits of support to help us learn and maximize our learning from that TED Talk. Well, I was watching the CBS morning show this weekend, and Dr. Sanjay Gupta was on there talking about memory and the brain and health of our brain. So this is just a short clip, but I would like for us to watch this because it was very reinforcing of what we talked about a couple weeks ago and how we're going to continue moving into 2021 with a positive brain health. So let's engage with Dr. Sanjay Gupta.
How's this for a New Year's resolution? Focus on keeping your brain alert and sharp. Our Dr. John LaPook has been getting some tips on that from CNN's Dr. Sanjay Gupta.
John, I've had a long-standing love affair with the brain.
When he's not on CNN giving updates on the coronavirus,
you have to try and do the best you can to mitigate all potential exposures.
Dr. Sanjay Gupta is at his day job.
You're a brain surgeon. What's it like to hold it in your hands?
First time I ever operated on the brain, close to 30 years ago now, it was a mystical experience. You can't believe that those 3.5 pounds are everything to us. All of our pain, all of our joy, all of our memories, all of our learning, everything.
And in his spare time, Dr. Gupta has written a book about the brain, specifically how to keep it in shape. The book is published by Simon & Schuster, a part of Viacom CBS. For Dr. Gupta, it's personal.
In many ways, this journey began when my grandfather developed Alzheimer's, and I saw that as a teenage kid, and it really stuck with me. This has been a lifelong journey to try and understand how I could prevent that from happening to me and from anybody else.
More than 5 million Americans have Alzheimer's, the most common cause of dementia.
One of the biggest fears that my patients have is of developing dementia. They'll come in and say, you know what, I couldn't think of somebody's name, I know them so well, or I was in the middle of a sentence, I lost my train of thought. So how can people know the difference between changes that come with normal aging and the onset of dementia?
This is a topic of conversation number one in our home. It used to be because my parents were always asking me this question, and now my wife and I are always asking each other this question, am I starting to become more forgetful? When it comes to discovering if something is just normal sort of memory loss versus abnormal, people lose keys all the time. It becomes more abnormal when you don't remember exactly what those keys are for.
It turns out the changes in the brain that lead to Alzheimer's disease begin decades before symptoms arise.
There is some suggestion, right, that even if you're destined to develop Alzheimer's in the future, that if your blood vessels in your brain are wide open, if you're doing everything you can to keep heart healthy, that it might actually push it off, it might actually delay it.
I think there's no question now that we can say, and I don't think we could have said this 5-10 years ago, that there are things we can do that involve lifestyle changes that could absolutely delay the progression of dementia and even reverse it.
Dr. Gupta says the key is doing activities that create cognitive reserve in the brain, areas of new nerve growth and wiring that can pick up the slack if needed. So let's get to it. With no miracle drug on the horizon, what's the prescription for fighting off dementia? Let's start with exercise. Put it this way, what's good for the heart is good for the brain.
When you move, it's almost like you're signaling to the body and to the brain, I want to be here. I'm not ready to go. With the brain specifically, it releases these things called neurotrophins, these good chemicals. So these are sort of nourishing the brain.
In the United States, a lot of us are going 100 miles an hour, but so many of us do that while sitting down, not moving.
People keep saying this, sitting is the new smoking. Every time you're about to sit, say, do I need to be sitting? And then just try and moderately move throughout the day. It's so effective in terms of what it does for the brain and what we can measure it doing to the brain.
And there are some simple habits people can do. For example, take the stairs rather than the elevator.
It takes months, years to change the heart. The brain can change like that.
How about diet? You've heard about that too. Eat less red meat, less processed food, more vegetables and fruit. Dr. Gupta says especially one kind of fruit.
They always say, John, apple a day keeps the doctor away. I think when it comes to the brain, it's berries. Berries, in terms of what they can do for the brain, in terms of the certain chemicals they release, are probably going to be one of your best foods.
Any berries?
Just about any berry. Blueberries get a lot of the attention because they may release more with fewer calories. They taste good, but if you like a certain berry, dive into berries.
How about working directly on your thinking skills?
Crossword puzzles, video games. What works?
I have nothing against crossword puzzles and even video games and brain training games and things like that. I think they can be great. So you do crossword puzzles, you play the piano, you do it over and over again, and practice makes perfect. That's absolutely true. But it's change that builds resiliency. You need the change. So I wouldn't just do crossword puzzles. The way that I think about it is if you can get outside your comfort zone in some way every day, you're probably harnessing other real estate in the brain that you don't otherwise use very often. Do something that scares you every day. You know, whatever the metaphor is, whatever works, just do something different, learn a new skill. I remember talking to these neuroscientists who said, eat dinner with your left hand tonight if you're right-handed.
Getting a good night's sleep is another way to help stay sharp. There are so-called garbage collecting cells that help remove toxins from the brain. And while you're asleep, memories from the day are processed.
Our knowledge about the importance of sleep has really changed over the years. It's not just a matter of letting our batteries recharge, right?
Sleep is such a sophisticated activity that we spend a third of our life doing. The brain is a remarkably complicated organ. When you go to sleep at night, it's taking the experiences you had throughout the day and consolidating them into memories. Why do we even have experiences if you're not going to do the things necessary to remember them, right? We're learning that the brain is constantly sort of going through this rinse cycle at night.
For one of the best ways to fight off dementia, look no further than your friends and family.
We know that social interaction is so critically important. We are social creatures. We know that there are certain neurochemicals that are released when we actually have touch and look someone directly in the eye. The best thing you could do overall in terms of putting it all together for brain health would be to take a brisk walk with a close friend and talk about your problems.
Why?
Get the brisk walk, you're getting the movement in, you're doing it with a friend, you're getting the social connection in. It turns into this beautiful thing for the relationship, but also for the brain.
Of course, the coronavirus means seeing friends up close and personal is a little tough right now. But with Americans starting to get vaccinated against COVID, the time when we can move past the pandemic may be approaching.
What people want to know is, when do we get back, if not to normal, towards normal? What do you think?
I think we will start to get back to normal a lot sooner than people realize, and I think that could be maybe mid-end of spring. It's going to start to feel a lot more normal. Things will start to open up. People will be out and about more. I have 3 teenage girls. I think they're going to be back in school next fall. I could be wrong, but that's where it seems like things are headed.
So as we look forward to getting back to normal, here's a New Year's resolution for you. Think about doing something for your brain.
Empathy and kindness, compassion, they do a lot for everybody's brain, don't they?
They are the ultimate sort of nourishment for the brain. Every sight you see, every sound you hear, everything you touch, feel, whatever it may be, taste, and then the feelings, the experiences that you have through empathy, through these connections with people, is all nourishing the brain as well. It's really good for the brain. It's why we live.
Okay, so I'm hoping that you were able to track on some of those very common threads throughout his presentation there and what we talked about a couple of weeks ago, and maybe just what you know from doing your own research and your own daily activities. So let's do a summary of Dr. Gupta's recommendations. Number 1, exercise. I know you hear that all the time. You hear it from Jeff, you hear it from me, you hear it from Sarah all the time. But the other common thread you heard there was that exercise helps you to stop or delay the onset of dementias. So moving multiple times a day is the real takeaway from here. You also heard him mention that What's good for the heart is good for the brain. You've heard that many times. And also that sitting is the new smoking. We've always known, not always, but for many, many years, the deficits that can be caused from smoking. And sitting is becoming that same problem for our lives as the smoking was. So we really need to be moving, setting a timer even if you need to help you remember if you've been sitting for 20 minutes that you need to get up and move. Putting things in places that aren't always a convenient place for you to get. For example, it's a tricky call because you want to make sure that you have water close to you when you're in your chairs, in your comfortable chairs, watching TV or reading a book to help you remember to drink. But at the same time, if you maybe set a timer and you have that water cup in your kitchen or in your bedroom, then when that timer goes off, you have to get up to go get your drink. So not only are you getting movement, you're also getting your hydration. So that's one of the things we need to do. Movement every day, multiple times a day. Diet. Again, we get to hear lots about diet, and I think the big takeaway from this one, there's many different things that we could elaborate on, but the big takeaway is to eat more berries. The berries are what seem to have the most benefits to our brain. Thinking. Again, during this class and during other opportunities, we get to talk about how can we work on thinking in order to help our brain. Well, I really liked what Dr. Gupta said here, and it was get outside of your comfort zone. Do something different. Many times you hear me say, brush your teeth, eat, comb your hair, button your shirts, whatever it is, doing those with your non-dominant hand is going to be working on different areas of the brain than if you do it with your dominant hand. So it's always very reinforcing to hear that from other people as well. So doing something different. Again, he also mentioned that it's okay to do those crossword puzzles and maybe your video games, your solitaire, your spider, whatever those things are. But that's only building that one skill. And once you've learned that skill, then you're just getting better at that skill. Whereas what our brain thrives on is learning something new and creating those new pathways. So try something new. The other thing that he talked about is sleep. Reminding our brains, our bodies, our minds, our personalities that sleep is important. Sleep is the time for your brain to process everything that you've been through. It's cleaning out the things that you don't need, excuse me, and it's filing away the things that you do need. So don't cut yourself short on sleep. Social interaction was the fifth thing that he talked about. And what is, again, that he talked about it in this video, but what's so challenging in this time of COVID is being able to really feel like you're making those true connections with others. And what that means to me is that we just need to take a little bit more time. We need to allow ourselves the grace and the time to make those connections with others. It might not be as easy as being able to truly read someone's expressions over the phone. However, that just means we get to work on practicing our communication skills even better by asking better questions to try to help the people that we're communicating with to share what it is that they're feeling, what they're experiencing. And then that in turn allows us to work on empathy and compassion and kindness. I really like what he said in that why put in the work of trying to establish memories? Why have experiences, things that you can smell and taste and feel and touch? Why have those if you don't do these other things to help you remember them? That to me was really a powerful statement. The other thing that I really liked was it's why we live. We're all here for those personal and social connections and interactions. So do it. Demonstrate empathy, compassion, and kindness. And then work on your sleep and your thinking skills and your eating and your exercise so that all of those things that you do to live, to make those connections, can stay in the brain and in your heart. So that's my summary of Dr. Gupta's recommendations. I hope you enjoyed that video as much as I did. So moving right along, we are going to review just a minute of a brain exercise. So a couple of weeks ago, we did a brain exercise where we looked at cards and each suit had its own exercise. So whenever we saw hearts, then we did jumping jacks. Whenever we saw spades, then we did marches, whatever it is. So this week, we're going to do something a little different. And I'm going to be showing you cards, and we're going to be working on saying what we see. But then, as our exercise, we're going to be doing some opposite things to really challenge our brain to do something new. So let's try something new, like Dr. Gupta said. So our first activity that we have, got all my props this week, so it makes me a little bit nervous. The first thing that we're going to do is we are going to simply add 3 to every number that we see here. Okay, so I'll hold this here and I want you just to add 3. So for example, this one I would say 7. So I'm not going to say the actual card that I see. I'm simply going to add 3 to it and then say that. So another one would be 5. What's this one? Okay. This one. This one. Hopefully my fingers aren't covering it all up. And that one. Okay. So simple, nice, easy task, adding 3 to every one. Now the next one we're going to do is we are going to subtract 4, okay? So here we would not say 8, we would simply say 4. Here we would say 1. Okay, now you keep going. Again, only saying the number with a -4, not the number of the card. Okay, all right. So you may say, Michelle, this is way too easy. This is simple. That's fine. That's what I want. I just want to start warming up our brain and our thinking and start getting ready for some more complicated activities. Okay, so this next one that we're doing, if it is red, so now we are adding 2 components in here. So if it is red, I want you to subtract 3. Okay, so just like we did on that round 1, we subtracted 3 from every face value that we had. Okay, if it is black, I want you to add 2. Okay, so red, subtract 3, black, add 2. Okay, so here we have a black. So instead of saying 8, we're going to say 10. Here we have a red 10, so we're going to subtract 3, which would be 7. Okay, subtracting 3 would be 6. And adding 2 would be 6. Now you continue on. Keeping in mind, we are doing red, subtracting 3, black, adding 2. And by the way, do you like my card? My dog got a hold of our cards ever since Christmas. Anything in a box she thinks is her treat. So, okay, so there we go. That was our next one. So we incorporated the first 2 activities by staying with subtracting 3 and adding 2. We just simply did it to different cards. Okay. This next task is just to kind of clear our minds a moment. So now all I want you to do is tell me what you see. So you're just going to say the suit and the number. So 5 of hearts 8 of spades. Keep going. Good. So that one was just to clear our brain a little bit. Now the next one we're doing is we are going to say the opposite color. So I have a red here. I'm going to say black. Red. So I'm going to go a little bit slower on this one because I want you to really stop. This involves a form of inhibition where we have to stop our natural desire to say what we see and flip it around. Okay, so say the opposite color. Okay, very good. All right, so the goal of this is to be switching gears and making our brains think. All right, now what we're going to do is when we see our red, so we're going back to one of our initial tasks, when we see red, we're going to subtract 3, but then we're going to say the opposite color. So we're trying to incorporate 2 of the last jobs, okay? So if I see red, I'm going to subtract 3, so it would be 4, and then I'm going to say the opposite color, which would be black, okay? So a black 4. If it is a black card, then I am not going to do anything. I'm going to say the face value of that card. I'm only changing the color and subtracting 3 if it is red. Okay, so this one, I would say red 3. Okay, only the opposite color. So here, I'm going to subtract 3 and say the opposite color. Okay, now what? Good job. Keep going. So subtracting 3 if it's red. If it's black, you say the same color, or the same number, excuse me, and then you say the opposite color for both. Okay. Very good. All right. Is your brain starting to swim a little bit? Okay, so something new, something different. The other reason I like this activity is that it's something that you can do at home. You can just grab your deck of cards and start figuring out what you want to do with it. Do I want to say the exact suit and color and number? Do I maybe want to switch and say only the opposite color, or say the opposite suit, or like we're doing also, adding or subtracting numbers? So for this next activity, we are going to say the opposite suit, okay? So here, so you're staying within the same color frame. So here I would say clubs, okay? So we're kind of going back down simple so that we can add back up on the next one. So I'd say clubs. I would say diamonds. I would say clubs. What would you say here? Okay, so there we were just changing to the opposite suit. All right. Now this one, we are going to work on going back again to one of our beginning tasks where we add 2 if it's black, and then we're going to do what we just practiced, which is to say the opposite suit. So if it's red, I am going to say the opposite suit, but keep the number, the face value, the same. So I'm changing on this one. It's a black card, so I would add 2 and change my suit. So it would be a 6 of clubs. So this one would be a 10 of spades. Okay, so this one, we're not going to do any adding or subtracting. We're simply going to change to diamonds. Had to make sure I got that right. All right, what would you do with this one? So again, if it's a black, we're adding 2 and changing suits. If it's a red, we're simply changing suits. Very good. All right. Maybe I could get a job in Vegas after all this card shuffling I'm doing. So our last activity that we're going to do is we're going back to our very first set, where if it's a red, we're subtracting 3, and if it's a black, we're adding 2. So here we would have 7 and 7. What about here? So subtracting 3 if it's red, adding 2 if it's black. Okay, so just a little bit of brain challenge, brain activity here. So what I wanted you to really get from this is that it's as simple as playing with a deck of cards. Well, 2 deck of cards in my case here. But you can do these types of brain activities just like exercise, just like physical exercise. As much as 5 minutes at a time can make a big difference. So, in closing, I want you to do something nice for your brain. Stay connected. Work on empathy and compassion and kindness in those social interactions. Move every day, multiple times a day, and practice the attention and naming activity that we just did with cards. You can make up your own things that you want to do. Maybe you really like math and are really good at math, so you want to find the square root of every face card. Maybe you want to multiply it times 25. Whatever it is that gives your brain a challenge, try that. I would love to hear some of your comments about some different types of brain activities that you tried with your cards. And again, you can do this in a multitude of places in your homes. You don't have to do it, in a specific place. You don't need a lot of equipment, but you can make your brain work. So I hope you enjoyed this session today. I look forward to seeing you again soon. And if ever you have questions about some activities or information about different brain exercises, you're always welcome to join me live at the Memory Activities class. It's on Zoom, and just check out the Meadowlark Messenger for information on how to join us for that. Have a wonderful week, and we'll see you soon. Bye.